to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Sunday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Down below, make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I meant to come on here earlier today and do a video and do like last Sunday and do 2 in 1 day. Good evening, Kevron. Glad to have you here as always, but I have been gone all day long, so I've been home for 10 minutes maybe. So I did not get a chance to do 2 videos today, so I am a day behind because I did not do one yesterday. Hey there, Marcus. Glad to have you here because college football was on so late last night into Sunday morning that I just couldn't find a decent time anywhere last night where I thought people would be on here watching my video instead of watching college football. So I didn't do one yesterday, which is why I'm now a video behind. But coming up sometime this week, we're going to talk about the new college football AP poll. We got to talk about week 3 in the NFL. We got to talk some NASCAR. We have to talk some wrestling. So all that's coming up this week, but I am a day behind, but it's okay. I'll get caught up somehow, somewhere, some way. But today I want to talk all the decent or somewhat decent college football games from Thursday, Friday, and yesterday. Any thoughts on it? As always, please feel free to let me know. Thursday night, really not even worth talking about. I mean, it was Rice and Charlotte. The game was okay, but I don't know if anybody cares about either team. But Rice did win the game, and I still call them food, by the way. Friday night we had 2 games on, and they were both competitive games. You know, Iowa beat Rutgers 38-28, and Rutgers quarterback is still Ethan Kaliakmanis, and it seems like he's been at Rutgers since the first time Greg Schiano was their head coach. He has not, but it seems that way. Hey there, Scripps. Glad to have you here. I'm glad you like my hat. This is the hat that I usually only wear for the videos because it's white, and white gets dirty so easy. I wear it out in public on occasion, but I don't like washing my hats because they get bent and it's never the same, and white just gets dirty so easy. But you have a blessed day as well, Scripps. And Andy, glad to have you here watching from Ireland. Yeah, they do, Scripps. I don't think I've ever in my life owned a pair of white shoes because white gets dirty so easy. Now, my referee shoes that I wear only to referee in, they're black and white, but they're not, solid white. But, I mean, they're referee shoes, so they're to ref in. And even then, those are hard to keep clean. They're not solid white. They're black and white. But I don't know if I've ever owned just a solid pair of white shoes. I'd be cleaning them all the time. But Friday night, Iowa beat Rutgers, and it's funny because Iowa won the game 38-28. Hey there, Texaco. Glad to have you here. But it's funny because Iowa, for years and years and years, had no offense at all, and they were, bottom 5 or bottom 10 every year in college football of having the worst offense. But yet their defense was so good, they could win most games. Now, the old saying is defense wins championships, and that's not true because no matter how good your defense is, if you don't score, you don't win. And Iowa's a great example of that because they beat top 5 in football every year in defense and never won a doggone thing because they couldn't score. So, they were winning most of their games 10-7, 13-10. But then on a rare occasion, they had a bad defensive game. They were in trouble because they couldn't score. Well, now this year, Iowa's team is completely different. With Lester calling plays, and now they've got Mark Gronowski, the transfer quarterback from South Dakota State, who is now the winningest quarterback in the history of college football. They actually have a really good offense. Now the defense sucks. So this year, if they don't score 30 a game, they're going to lose a lot of games. They have completely did a 360, but Iowa was so bad for so long that when you watch Iowa and they actually score on offense, you think, am I really watching Iowa? I'm watching a team that can actually score. It doesn't look right. And then Tulsa defeats Oklahoma State 19-12. And if Mike Gundy makes it through this season, I'll be surprised. Now, I know he was terrible last season, and I still don't think Oklahoma State's going to be as bad as they were last year. You know, I did a early season preview on them, and I picked them to win 5 games, which would be a bad season, but a whole lot better than last season. But, you know, Mike Gundy would have been okay if he'd have coached Oklahoma State and went 6-6 or 7-5 every year. But once the fans get a taste of winning, that's all they want. So once you have a 9 or 10 win season, that's what fans want every year. And Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State, was never going to win 9 or 10 games every year. It's just not possible. It's not going to happen. But once you get there, that's what the fans expect every year. And that's why I've said here on the channel numerous times that people always say all they want to do is win, and that's not so. You want to win when you're not winning. But once you start winning, then you expect to win every game. And that's what happened to Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. He had a couple of 9 or 10 win seasons, and now the fans want that every year. So if he makes it through the end of the season, this will be his last season. Duke beats NC State 45-33. Duke needed that win after losing the last 2 weeks, but NC State had been winning either ugly or coming from behind, but they were winning, and that finally came to an end. Yesterday, Troy defeats Buffalo 21-17, a very good competitive football game. In a game that everybody thought was going to be competitive, it was not. Central Florida defeated North Carolina 34-9, and not this week, but in 2 weeks on October the 4th, North Carolina plays Clemson, and I would advise everybody to not watch that game. That game, I know people talked about yesterday, Texas Tech and Utah playing at noon because it was 10 a.m. in Utah, but North Carolina and Clemson should play at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and the game should be on, I don't know, Cartoon Network, Comedy Central, one of those channels. It shouldn't be on no prime network, as bad as those two teams are. But that game has ACC Network at noon written all over it. But it should be 9 or 10 a.m. Eastern time, either on Cartoon Network or Comedy Central. And then we had North Texas in overtime defeat Army 45-38. UNLV keeps winning under Dan Mullen. They beat Miami of Ohio 41-38. TCU and SMU, who have one of the longest, if not the longest, rivalry in college football, but yesterday was their last time playing each other, at least for the foreseeable future. TCU wins 35-24, and I know that the whole NIL thing and transfer portal has ruined college football, but to me, these rivalries like SMU, TCU going away is more harmful for the sport than NIL and transfer portal because, TCU, SMU, depending on where you live, it doesn't mean diddly squat. Hey there, Ima, glad to have you here. But if you live in Texas, that rivalry means something. And you think about where you live. If you live in Alabama, just think about Alabama and Auburn no longer playing each other. If you live in Florida, think about Florida and Florida State no longer playing each other. It's nice to see you too, Ima, even though I can't visually see you. I see your name in the comment section, so it's good to see you. If you live in Georgia, think about Georgia and Georgia Tech no longer playing each other. if you live in South Carolina, think about Clemson and South Carolina no longer playing each other. I think that is more harmful than people getting paid, even though I think the players getting paid is slowly killing college football, and if it don't stop, there'll be no college football in 10 years. But I think the rivalries going away is more harmful because no matter what team you pull for, I know people who don't watch football on a regular basis, but when their local team, whoever it is, plays their rival, they watch that one game because that one game means so much. So when that goes away, they're just not going to care anymore at all. And I think that's more harmful than the NIL and transfer portal stuff. And I'm glad you like my accent. Unfortunately, I was born and raised in the South, been here all my life, so I try not to use the overly Southern words and overly Southern slangs, but unfortunately, the accent is something that's just there, and I can't even try to hide it because it wouldn't work. And then we had Syracuse beat Clemson 34-21, and this goes back to what I was saying a while ago about Oklahoma State. Because now there's not many. Hey there, Alex. Glad to have you here. There's not many, but there are a few Clemson fans that want Dabo fired. Dabo's not getting fired. Dabo shouldn't get fired. I'm talking college football tonight. Alex, I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have you here and hope you're doing good as well for whatever reason. While you stopped by on this Sunday night, thanks for being here. If it is your first time here, please give the video a like, a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. But what Dabo's done for Clemson is more than has ever been done at Clemson. He's not getting fired. Hey there, Poptricity. Hey there, Okie Light. Glad to have y'all here on this Sunday night. Okie Light, I just talked about Oklahoma State a few minutes ago from their game Friday night when they played Tulsa. And thank you for subscribing, Alex. I appreciate that. But, you know, Dabo Swinney has had the best stretch of a Clemson head coach in the history of the program. What's happened is he's won for so long that fans have become accustomed and become spoiled by winning. So now they're like, oh, he's not winning no more. He's got to go. And I'm probably not going to change my profile pic, Alex, only because the channel is called Ref Brandon and the Todd Family. So my profile pic is me and my wife because she's not on here much. So I feel like I need to use her. Otherwise, people wonder why is it called Ref Brandon and the Todd Family when it's just all about Brandon. So that's why the profile pic is me and my wife. It's been that way for a while. It'll probably be that way going forward. I would put all three of my kids in the picture, but it's just not a big enough picture to put 5 heads in one picture. But Alex, sometime let me know what your channels are and I'll check them out sometime. But now if Clemson has 4, 5, 6 straight bad seasons, then maybe you think about, okay, maybe it is time for a change. But you can't have a coach that's won at least 9 games, 14 straight years, have one bad season, and then all of a sudden say, oh, he's got to go. He can't coach anymore. And it's so amazing to me that people are so uptight and upset about what he said in the press conference this past week. And I got to be honest with you, I have no idea what he said. Hey there, Alexander. Glad to have you here. I still have not watched his press conference from after the game last night. And if I watch a press conference, it's generally after a game when all the questions are about that actual game. And then sometimes leading up to the season, I'll watch not just Clemson, but I'll watch other teams and other coaches' press conference just to see what they have to say about the upcoming season. Hey there, Prime Trendy Deals. Glad to have you here. And Alexander, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that. And this is your brother's channel. Tell your brother thank you for checking in. But it's obviously a bad season. There's no denying that. And I think they'll be some wholesale changes on the coaching staff, but it's not going to be Dabo. You don't have one bad season and fire everybody. But we know when you've been a 7 or 8 win program for 20 years, and now all of a sudden you have a bad season, people want to jump off cliffs. He's not going anywhere. He's fine. But he's made some bad coaching changes, but it wasn't intentional. You don't know, hey, this guy's going to suck, but I'm going to hire him anyway. You don't know that C.J. Spiller can't coach until you hire the guy. You don't know that Tyler Grisham can't coach until you hire the guy. You don't know that Nick Eason can't coach until you hire the guy. When you hire these coaches that have no experience, some work out, some don't. It's about 50-50. The ones that work out, you're a genius. The ones that don't work out, you're an idiot. But every inexperienced coach is not going to work out. But you don't know that's not going to work out until you give them a shot. You don't go into it saying, now this guy's going to suck, but I'm going to hire him anyway. You don't know. If they've done enough to where you feel like they warrant the opportunity, you give it to them. And if it don't work out, you move on. But you still got to give them a chance. But I think their biggest problem right now is, and I've mentioned this numerous times, is their talent development. I can watch the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, and if I watch Trevor Lawrence, I see the same quarterback now that I saw his freshman year at Clemson. He's just never gotten better. And I see the same thing with almost everybody on their roster on both sides of the ball. When they come in, they're 4 and 5 stars, and by the time they leave, they're 2 and 3 stars. And you're supposed to get better, but their players get worse. And Alexander, you're 6'7". I know a guy that's, I think, 6'11", and he's got some big feet himself. But he'll be fine. He's not going anywhere. I could see Clemson being 3-9, and I could see them coming off this bye week and winning out. You just never know. But they say the problem is when they practice, they're doing everything right. But then when it comes game time, it's not translating over from practice to game time. But if you're Dabo Swinney and you've done the same thing for 15 years, and it's worked for 15 years, and all of a sudden it's not working, you can't just go to bed one night and wake up the next day and be totally different as a coach. You can't. You have a nice day too, Alex, and thank you for stopping by, because we're human. Everybody gets complacent. Everybody gets comfortable. Everybody becomes creatures of habit. And when you've done the same thing the same way 15 years, and then all of a sudden you've got to change it, you can't change it overnight because you've got accustomed to doing it the way you're doing it. But they'll be fine. He's not going anywhere. But, back when I first started watching Clemson, I was there in '98 when Tommy West was a coach, and they were 3-8. So I've seen some down years. But, hey there, Wick. Glad to have you here. But when Tommy Bowden was the coach, he won 7.5 games every year. They always had good skill position players, but that was all they had. Offensive line was terrible. Defense was terrible. But almost every year they had a great kicker. They had good quarterbacks, good running backs, good receivers, but that was it. So when they played a good team, they were always picked to lose. And back in those days, when Bowden was a coach, you played 11 games a year. So when the year ended and you were 7-4, you were like, well, that's about what I expected. If you were 6-5, you were like, well, that's about what I expected. If you went 8-3, it was, well, that's about what I expected, because you look in all the games you lost, you were picked to lose. So you always beat the teams you were supposed to beat, and you lost to the teams you were supposed to lose to. Hey there, Surya. Glad to have you here. Your robot's name is Max. Well, Surya, glad to have you here, and your robot Max, glad to have you here. Hopefully, both of y'all subscribe. Your robot can subscribe, and you can too, Surya. So good to have both of y'all here on this Sunday evening. But the difference is now, Clemson's got 4 and 5 star talent all over the field. So it does hurt the fans more when you lose when you're supposed to win, as opposed to when you lose and you're supposed to lose. Because if you're supposed to lose, you watch the game hoping to win, but you don't expect to win. But when you watch the game and you hope to win and you lose, it's a little bit different. And Wick, I hate to break the news to you, but if you're not a sports fan, you picked the wrong channel, because all I talk about is sports, except for when I do my top 10 countdowns, because they could be about Halloween, Christmas, movies, music, cars, holidays, food, candy, drinks, anything. But every other day I'm either talking some kind of sport or wrestling. So if you're not a sports fan, you picked the wrong channel. But hopefully one day you'll come around and start liking sports. And Bag of Sand, glad to have you here. But on to other games. Memphis defeats Arkansas 32-31. And speaking of coaches getting fired, oh, your name is Cletus. Well, Cletus, glad to have you here. I always just say the name in the comment section, because that's the only name that I know unless you tell me your name. So now that I know your name is Cletus, hopefully I won't forget that. If you come back every single day and leave a comment every day during my live video, my live stream, I'll remember that. But if you leave for a month and come back, I'm not going to recall that. But if you come every day, I should remember it. But speaking of coaches getting fired, I don't think that Arkansas's coach Pittman makes it through this year. And it's sad because their quarterback is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I'm not going to say the best, but he's top 10, if not top 5. But nobody's going to know because Arkansas is a 4-win team, maybe. Michigan beats Nebraska 30-27. I think I saw that Nebraska's now lost, I want to say it was 28 straight games against ranked opponents. Now, I know they're slowly getting better every year under Matt Rule, but they're never going to be great again until they can beat a ranked team, because you're going to play 4 or 5 ranked teams every year. So if you can't beat a ranked team, then you're looking at best 8-4, because you're going to play at least 4 ranked teams every year, because you've got Michigan, you've got Ohio State, you've got Penn State, you've got Oregon. A lot of those years you've got Iowa. You're not going to avoid all those teams every year. And they play Iowa every year, but Iowa's not always ranked. But Michigan's almost always ranked. Ohio State's always ranked. Penn State's always ranked. Oregon's always ranked. And now you also have Illinois and Indiana that are just about always going to be ranked. So if you're in Nebraska, yeah, you might look a little better and be a little bit better. But if you can't beat a ranked team, you're looking at a minimum of 4 or 5 losses every year. And Okie Light, I'm not a big fan of Dylan Raiola. Now, I will say that Dylan Raiola is better than every quarterback they've had the last 20 years, because they've had some bad quarterbacks come through Nebraska, like Riker Fife. Boy, was he terrible. But he's still not great. To me, he's fat, he's pudgy, he's got a slow delivery, he stares down receivers too much, his arm's not very strong. I think he's just an average athlete, so there's nothing great about Dylan Raiola. He's still better than what they've had in the last 20 years, but I don't think he's good enough to win anything. And speaking of the noon game on Fox, Texas Tech beats Utah 34-10. Now, this game was 10-3 at halftime, and it was 17-10 in the fourth quarter, and Texas Tech just pulled away with it. But, Fox put this game on at noon because Fox wants to have the best game of the week on at noon, and I understand that. But it's going to be hard now because the Fox game is always Big Ten. And now you've got, of course, Utah is 2 hours behind, but they also have USC, which is 3 hours behind us. So you can't be putting a game on at noon where it's doggone 9 o'clock a.m. in California just to have the noon game on. And if you watched any of that Texas Tech Utah game, you could tell that those teams were half asleep because they're not used to playing that early in the morning. And if you're Utah, the game's at 10 a.m., so you're probably down at the school cafeteria at 5 o'clock in the morning eating breakfast. And you're watching film at 6 a.m. because you've got to be in the locker room by 7 or 7:30 to get ready. And you could tell because the first half of that game was absolutely hideous. So the game was competitive because both teams were terrible, but they were terrible because the time the game was on where they were playing. Now, noon Eastern and noon Mountain Time ain't the same thing. Now, I picked Texas Tech to go 11-1. I still think they do, and I still think they win the Big 12. But I had them going 11-1, but there was only 2 or 3 games on their schedule that I could possibly see them losing, and one of them was yesterday. But I didn't pick them to go undefeated because going undefeated is just so hard to do. But Texas Tech is really, really good, and I still think they win the Big 12. But I know Fox always carries, a Big 10, a Big 12 game. But now with these conferences the way they are, in the Big 10, you've got teams in the Eastern time zone, Central time zone, and you have Pacific time zone. In the Big 12, you have Central time zone, Mountain time zone, and Pacific time zone. So Fox may want to look at making only teams in the Eastern and maybe Central time playing at noon, and that's it, because you can't have many more games like yesterday where the football is just so bad, it ain't worth watching. There's a difference in the game being competitive because it's 2 evenly matched teams, and a game being competitive because both teams are still half asleep, and that's what happened yesterday. Oklahoma defeats Auburn 24-17. Kansas destroys West Virginia 41-10. Missouri defeats South Carolina 29-20. Now the Gamecocks only got to 20, but that is worthy of mentioning because ever since Mike Shula became their offensive coordinator, they had not scored more than 17 points in a game, and they finally got to 20. So it's not great, but it's better than 17. Miami beats Florida 26-7. You feel bad for Florida because I saw a stat, I think, on Friday that said Florida's defense had only given up, I think, 2 touchdowns through 3 games, and they were 1-2 because they can't score. Well, that game yesterday was competitive for a long time. It was actually Miami 13-0 for a long time, and then Florida scored and made it 13-7. But then the Hurricanes pulled away because Florida can't score. Their offense is absolutely pitiful. Virginia all over Stanford 48-20. And then Arizona State defeats Baylor 27-24. And in a game that was supposed to be competitive, that ended up not being competitive, you had number 9 versus number 19. Number 9 was Illinois, and 19 was Indiana. And Indiana wins the game 63-10. And it wasn't that close. I mean, this game was, from mid-first quarter on, was all Hoosiers. The game was never in doubt. And if memory serves, going back and watching it, I want to say Indiana was up at halftime 35-7, I believe. So they pulled away fairly early. The game was never competitive. They put it on prime time because on paper it looked like 2 evenly matched teams, and it wasn't. This game was all Hoosiers. Any thoughts on any of this? Please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. The definition of the hardest job in the world is a police officer telling a woman she has the right to remain silent. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much